So I'm just going to measure the area of damage. I know how big to cut my support fabric. Okay, now I'm going to insert behind the area of damage. So now I just need to unroll it inside. So I'm just going to put a pin where I roughly want the bottom corner of the patch to be, and then use a thread to pull it into place. And then I'm going to start the stitching. I think stitching is quite relaxing because you're very much just focused on this one moment, getting everything lined up and tacked down so it won't move, so it's well supported, and it's a really nice task to just sit quietly and focus on. And it's so satisfying when you finish and your patch matches and your stitching is neat. Yeah. It's always amazing to look at the original stitching and the original materials and to think about how we stitch and the materials that we use today. We're going to be using polyester thread today to sew, whereas they used cotton thread originally to make this uniform. So we can tell the difference between original and modern conservation work. So I'm just securing my sewing thread in my support fabric, running stitches just around the holes. The important thing is just to stitch through this top layer and support fabric and not the outer layer of wool. So what I need to do when I put my needle in is just feel how many layers of fabric I've actually gone through and just make sure I'm not going through all of them. Done. So for the eagles, which are located on the bottom of the coattails, I'm going to just do some very small stitches just to hold down a few of the metal threads which have come loose. And I'm going to be using this very fine thread called stable tax, which is actually from a woven polyester fabric. And I've just drawn the thread out of the fabric to use as my sewing thread.
The imperial eagle is a symbol that you can see on the buttons and the front of the shako, which is the eagle with its wings outstretched. Napoleon used the imperial eagle as a symbol of military power to convey pride in his troops.
We won't repair this because we don't add in any extra metal threads or any extra metal. What I'll do is just make sure that the existing threads are secure and that they're not going to fall off or be lost. I'm just sewing on the replica buttons we have had made for the front of the uniform. These buttons have been made by Firmin House, who are expert button makers, and they've been making buttons since 1655, so before this uniform was even in existence. We sent them photographs and a resin cast of one of the original small buttons, and they've scaled up the design to the correct size for the front. But I also created 3 resin buttons for the cuffs of the uniform. These buttons I've made with an epoxy resin that I cast from the one original cuff button that remains. I then mixed silver powder into the resin and then painted it with acrylic paints to give it that really aged look.